Hello and welcome to the September 25th club meeting of the Women Product Toastmasters Club. Today I'll be your Sergeant at Arms, Amy Kirkland, and today our theme is working with your product pod, product management, product or engineering lead, and designer. This is an important group for us all to work with closely as we design our products. And I'm excited to hear everyone's how everyone views that relationship in their role. And at this time, I'd like to introduce our president, Rosie Hernandez.
Hi, thank you, Amy. All right, so for today, I'll cover our theme, which is empowering every women's voice at the table. Or not for today, but this is our ongoing theme. For club business, I just wanted to remind everyone to renew their memberships if they haven't already. If you're having trouble with payment or the form, anything like that, reach out to Amelia. She'll be able to help you out. Progress on our club goals. We're still in the same standing as last week, which is that we have one of the 10 goals. As a reminder, this is where we track kind of our standing with Toastmasters International. If you click the link in the agenda, you'll be able to see where we're at exactly. The other reminder is to please fill out the District 101 member survey. There's a link in the agenda as well. And we'll also be having a Q&A after today's meeting. So if you have any questions on pathways or you're a guest and you want to find out more about membership, just stay after and we'll be able to answer those questions. At this time, though, I do want to, pulling up the guest list. Want to give a moment to the guests to introduce themselves if there are any. Cynthia, I think it might just be you, and I think you shared last week why you had joined, but maybe for the people that weren't here last week, if you could just cover your name and then what brought you into to us.
Okay, I'm Cynthia. I live near Astoria, Queens, and the thing that brought me in more than anything else was a desire to improve my presentation skills. I'm a senior tech in engineering, so I'm not really a product manager, and I didn't know if that would be okay or if it would be, inconvenient for other people. But I'm interested in learning more about what you people do. I'm interested in learning about product management, and I thought this would be a great place to start.
Awesome. Thank you for coming back, Cynthia.
Thanks.
Thank you. I also see that Alice is a guest as well. Alice, if you'd like to introduce yourself as well.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Alice. I am currently a senior analytics manager at Shopify, and I am interested in product. I found this group through Women in Product Facebook group, wanted to learn more about it, and interested in learning how to become a better speaker. So thanks, everyone, for having me today.
Awesome. Well, welcome, Cynthia and Alice. Really happy to have you here today. On a quick note about this, we might ask you to participate sometime in the later section of our meeting, and I'll have our table topics master go into that when she gets to her part, but just an FYI. And for now, I'll pass the mic back to Kashmira, the Toastmaster of the day. Thanks.
Thank you, Rosie. Fellow Toastmasters and guests, it is my privilege to welcome you today and to introduce the theme of the day, working with your product pod, PM, lead designer, lead engineer, and designer. So working with your product pod, right? I always have images of people frantically working inside a little pea pod floating in my head anytime someone mentions a pod. And on the flip side, I thought a pod might just be a fancy name for all the people a PM works with regularly. But I knew that I could not show up with some spiel about peas and people as your Toastmaster. So I asked Google about it. And it turns out that POD is actually an acronym for Product Oriented Delivery, a big O. and then aha moment for me, that one. So I conversed with Google some more, and in short, a pod is a group of individuals with complementary skills, not similar, but complementary, all of which are necessary to the shared purpose of building and delivering a product. Little by little, conversing with Google, the concept started to make sense and started to bring smiles of understanding on my face. I'm super excited and curious to hear more about pods from everyone here today. And hopefully the images of people in P-pods will be replaced by something more meaningful. All right, moving along, I'd like to explain the structure of the meeting. This is something you can also find in the agenda sent in the invite. So the meeting is divided into 3 sections. The first is the prepared speech round, where members will be delivering speeches per the pathway that they're pursuing. And today we will have Sirisha Aluru and Sam Doctor presenting their speeches. The second part of the session is table topics round, where we can practice impromptu speaking. Jen Ginsberg is leading this round, and she'll definitely be keeping us on our toes because we have no idea what the topics that she's going to ask us about. And the third and final part is the evaluation round, in which all the prepared speeches will be evaluated by the general evaluator and her team. And I take this opportunity to call upon today's general evaluator, Tanya Sadalnik, to introduce herself and her team. Over to you, Tanya.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. Welcome, everyone. I will be conducting the evaluation portion of our meeting today. I'll be calling on a team to assist me with giving feedback to our speakers. We have 2 speeches today, so Ashley and Ava will be doing the evaluations. Our counter is Srimai. Srimai, could you please tell us about your role today?
Srimai is actually not here, I don't think.
Right, so she had accepted or confirmed, but I don't see her.
Okay. Anybody want to be counter?
Rosie. Rosie's gonna do it.
Rosie, got it. All right, so
Thanks, Rosie.
basically, Rosie will keep track of our filler words, our ums, our ahs, all that. Thank you for filling in at the last moment, Rosie. All right, next up, it is important that we get our message across in the allowed time. And for the meeting to run according to schedule, our timer is Amulia. Could you please lay out our timing guidelines today?
Of course. Thank you, Madam General Evaluator. As timer, I will time the table topic speakers, formal speeches, and the evaluations. I will also alert each speaker of the time that they have left using the green, yellow, and red cards that will pop up on my screen, which denote specific times remaining. Table topic speakers should limit their remarks to no more than 2 minutes. Those giving speeches should limit their remarks to specific times based on the speeches. So icebreaker speeches should be 4 to 6 minutes in length, and most other speeches, standard speeches, will be 5 to 7 minutes in length. And then individual evaluations will be 2.5 minutes to 3.5 minutes in length. Thank you, Madam Toastmaster, or Madam General Evaluator.
Thank you, Amelia. Next up, we have Jennifer as our table topics master. Jennifer, can you tell us about this section of our meeting?
Yeah, thanks, Tanya. So when it comes to table topics, it's very much unprepared speeches. It's a way for us to practice impromptu speaking. Oftentimes, the questions that I'm going to be asking are related to the topic of the day. And everyone is fair game. I'm including guests. So if you find that you are just like, I don't want to participate as a guest, please direct message me and I'll leave you off the list. All right, but it's a great way to do impromptu speaking.
All right, thank you, Jennifer. Last but not least, our grammarian today is Richu. Can you please tell us about your role?
Absolutely. Thank you, Madam General Evaluator. My role is to notice anything interesting, any vocabulary that was used, particularly either incorrectly or in an enlightening way. Besides that, I also share the word of the day. So the word of the day is something that you could We suggest that you use as many times as you can through your speeches, through your table topics discussions for today. And I'll keep a count of that and bring it up towards the end of the meeting. The word of today is coalition. And I understand it's a little political, but that's exactly what happens sometimes when cross-functional teams have to come together to work on a single product or a single intent. So the word for today is coalition. Back to you, Madam General Evaluator.
Thank you very much, Richu. I'm just not jotting that down, so maybe I can try to use it. That is the evaluation team for today. Back to you, Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you, Tanya. And now we are ready to begin our prepared speech portion. Our first speaker today is Sirisha Oluru. Sirisha has been in product management for over 12 years. Her favorite aspect of her career is interacting with people and getting to learn different perspectives in her free time. Her hobbies are dancing, singing, and sketching. The title of her speech is Product Manager in SAFE. I think that's an acronym. And with that, I invite Sirisha to take the stage.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. Yes, SAFE is an acronym which I'll be shortly explaining. So good morning, everyone. So today I'm going to talk about SAFE, which is nothing but Scaled Agile Framework. And I'll be touching a little bit on what product manager role in SAFE is about. So SAFE, as the acronym says, Scaled Agile Framework, is a very upcoming and trendy choice for many leading organizations today. And I'm seeing many companies are adopting as they see benefits such as faster time to market, they are seeing increase in productivity, seeing better quality, and most important of all, there is a better employee engagement. I know it's a vast subject, and in the interest of time, I'm just going to go first quickly an overview of the template, and then second, I'm going to highlight the product manager role wherever applicable. So the inventors of SAFE, it's a framework, and they created the SAFE as in a layered approach because I think they have foreseen the challenges to implement the SAFE as a whole. So they took this layered approach, and with that, the companies can take this template and they can customize and adopt the framework to their needs. Well, a company I know is only implemented at one level, whereas in my company, we are now moving to implementing it at 2 levels. So I'm going to talk about what are the basic layers of this SAFE template. So there are 3, which is portfolio management, program management, and team management. I would like to go from the bottom. So team management. Like we all know, most of us, team level is standard Scrum or an Agile. There are several Agile methodologies that team can implement, and they have that freedom to implement how they want to implement. But ideally, the recommendation is the team should be a cross-functional team, just like a mini pod. And typically they work in an iteration of a 2-week sprint. And there is a product owner who works in coalition with product manager to create a sprint backlog that team can take, commit to those user stories, and work through those 2 weeks of iteration. And the goal is by the end of the iteration, team is able to demonstrate the working software before development. Here, like I said, I'll be highlighting a product manager in each step of the way. The product manager comes as a consultant because the product owner needs help with identifying which features they have to work on for the, say, sprint 1, and then they need that input from the product manager in terms of priority and the expectations. Now going to the next level, which is program management, which is very similar to team management, but it's at a program level. So now we are not talking about one team in general. There are multiple teams coming together to deliver something like in a solution or a larger scale. So now instead of a 2 sprint, the cadence we are looking at is at typically a 5 sprints and then we call it an increment. So the safe term for this team of teams is called an art. And I can draw a parallel understanding in, art can be a pod, because, an art is governed by this RT or an engineer who looks at, like, an art could have a like product manager, designer, core team. So which are given a certain objective to meet by the end of the iteration, or in this case, increment. Here, the product manager role is even more crucial because he is the owner of the program backlog. So the content for this whole increment is provided by the product manager, and we call it a program backlog. So the program backlog consists of business features, architecture features, enablers, NFRs. But these product managers have to work with stakeholders and executives to come up with a set of objectives and goals for the program backlog. Again, same like the team level, it kicks off with a PI planning or a planning increment meeting where all team members from all these arts come together and they brainstorm the goals for the upcoming PI. In this PI planning, which typically their recommendation is it's a long 2-day meeting, teams here and there, they break out and try to come up with their own sprint backlog or the iteration backlog so that they're pretty much aligned to the entire art goals. And the product manager, again, here acts as a consultant because he is the person who can help with answering any question regarding the priority or objectives. The goal is that by end of the PI, a program level solution is ready to ship, and product managers pretty much they own and they should ensure that the solution that the teams have built is adhering to the customer standards and expectations. Now let's go to the another level, which is a portfolio management. Coming to portfolio management is focused more on funding the business strategy into investment teams. Now here the content is epics, business and architecture epics. Again, product manager plays an important role because he is the one who's like on the receiving end. So he's supposed to, or she's supposed to make sure that, all these epics are clear and he or she is able to translate them into features for their program level backlog. So I have talked about 3 levels, but I want to back it up with an example, which recently my company has implemented. So we used the SAFE framework, and for the very first time, we used the framework to implement a payment app as a solution. Now here you can say pod or art, because say art is a safe term. So I'll just say art. So art could be, one art was billing art, one art was notifications art, one art was data security, another art was privacy and consents. So all these different parts, they have their own set of objectives, but they had to all in coalition have to work together to build a solution wherein a customer can go and pay his bill on an app. So I would say, like, as a first go, we did pretty good, but we can still improve upon like some things like, because it's pretty new to our organization in implementing SAFE. But I've seen great success, especially in everybody has a say. Everybody have to come together. The employee engagement that SAFE promised, I was able to see, like, we were rather than working in silos, we are able to come together, talk about dependencies, talk about risks, talk about that collaboration. I think was the best thing that happened implementing SAFE in my space. So, well, SAFE is just a template. And oftentimes, instead of going into weeds, I think, we can just take the SAFE principles and customize them to our needs accordingly. And like I was explaining, but at each level, product managers play a very crucial role, like a golden thread that runs through every level of the process. So next time, give it a go. Either you can start with the team level or you can start with any level of your choice, but try SAFE and let me know how it plays in your space. Thank you, Madam Toastmasters. Over to you.
Thank you, Sarisha. That was really helpful. Just trying to understand how everything works together and the coalition that's been formed with the one single golden thread. And I would at this point like to ask the timer to give us 2 minutes for evaluators to write down their thoughts. And I'm going to open up the forum for questions from the audience. I do have a couple, but I'm going to see if anyone else wants to speak up as well. There. Okay, I'll go with my question then. You mentioned ART a couple of times. So what does the acronym stand for?
Oh, sorry, I thought I mentioned. It's an Agile release train. So they see an analogy of like train, like going smooth. So one train go from one stage to the other, and then the other train comes. So it's like kind of a team is working in terms of train, and they're shipping the product. So it's kind of an analogy that they use in SAFe.
Okay, thank you. My second question I had was, how did you manage to get everybody on the same page and even just get to start having them have these interactions? Because that's a tough one. Once everybody's in the room, it's fine, but
yeah,
getting
so
them there is the.
Yeah, that is, I think we are still improving, but I think the very, even the SAFe recommends is first of all training everybody and set expectations, like, why we are doing SAFe. Everybody got trained in SAFe, and why we are doing, what are the expectations, what is the agenda, and why we are doing it. And if there are any concerns in terms of process, were addressed beforehand. And then in terms of like, requirements, that is the whole planning is about. So everybody is in the same room. I know we did it virtually, but we tried to do some part in office. So if they had any questions, so we were able to address them in the planning. So giving enough time to process what's been provided. I think that is one thing that helped in alignment. And yes, like I was saying, we still saw some challenges, but overall, I could call it a success, because it was a huge initiative, and then we restructured teams so that we can implement SAFe. So yeah, I mean it is hard, but just talking, communicating is what I would say worked.
Thank you. Yes, training and letting people know of the benefits is definitely the first step. Thanks, Sarisha. And our 2 minutes are up. So next is our second speaker today is Sam Doctor. Sam is a product manager based in New York City. She works with her team to build new features to help pods collaborate using Shortcut, a product development management tool. This is so perfect, a product for pods. Sam was just a few speeches away from finishing her innovative planning pathway. The title of her speech is The Retro. And take it away from here, Sam.
Thank you, Kashmira and Madam Toastmaster. Hi, everyone, and pleasure speaking with all of you again today. Welcome, guests. Today, I am going to be giving a speech about the retro. Several months ago at this point, I gave a speech about a project that my team was kicking off, and a part of that project was I needed to talk to more users of Shortcut, which is a project management tool for dev teams or pods. I was a fresh PM ready to make a difference with my team and build something exciting. Fast forward to now, we had a reorg, new product leadership, a new team, and several projects in between. That initial feature that I talked about, that initial project came to fruition. Leading that team, we launched a new onboarding experience that improved activation by over 50%, which is super exciting. Well, let me back up here. How did I get to a retro and wanting to talk about that with you all? Before I joined Shortcut, there was no QA process implemented for the team that I ended up joining. New leadership, new growth goals meant for a hyper focus on our product's first experience and driving that activation number. With all of this, what leading into that onboarding project, and along with that qualitative research that I conducted, we had over 5 releases with our product that impacted our sign-up flow and new experience. This is a lot going on at the same time. All of you, I bet, are thinking in your heads, there are a lot of ways that things go wrong, and you are all correct if you are thinking that. At least in hindsight, I think that. There were some bumps along the way, and by bumps, I mean bugs. Bugs happened. There are several rituals that teams execute on, or pods, when collaborating, and one of them is a retro or a retrospective. A retrospective is a meeting that's typically held after a project is finished or a crisis has happened that impacts the team. The main goal for a retro is to reflect on how that project went and what went well, what maybe didn't, and the learnings that the pod or team can take from it. Even now, newer in my product career, I have bared witness to many a retro, and as I'm sure many of you have as well in your careers, teams have different styles, different ways to execute them, to run them, and teams run them for slightly different reasons. So, fellow Toastmasters, we certainly had a retro after our growth initiative was complete and we made all of those changes in the product. That project with several releases and myself as a newer PM learned just as much about the right ways to run a retro after a cross-functional project as I did about why certain bugs happened, why certain issues may have happened during that process. And I'm going to share with all of you what I learned from running a retro after a big project, how it went and the takeaways there. And really it comes down to 5 things that I'm going to take with me and I'm going to share with all of you. So when planning a retro, number 1, set the expectations. Be open and straightforward about the goals for the retrospective discussion. Consider how those questions and outcomes are interpreted by different contributors, different folks on your pod or team, for example, engineering, design versus product. Keep the agenda on a level that everyone can understand, everyone can have a common ground around. Number 2, establish a safe space. I think this is important. Hopefully everyone works at an org where this is valued, establishing that this discussion is open to all points of view, orienting the conversation around observations and learnings versus criticism, pointing onus, the focus on problems that may have triggered the retrospective, if that's the reason why the meeting was scheduled. Number 3, acknowledge collective ownership over wins and misses. Go into the discussion as a team, just as you did when the project began, that the retro is about. And number 4, gather key takeaways, as any PM does. Write down a few actionable takeaways that the team has confidence that they can be completed. Notes are great, but a sense of making progress feels even better. And number 5, the last takeaway for a retro that I'm keeping with me is make the outcomes visible. Something that I've been learning more about and working through as a PM is upward visibility. The team may know what they are doing and that they're doing the thing, but does leadership? Making the outcomes of these discussions visible is a good way to show that the team is collaborating well, especially in a potential hybrid or work from home environment. My team applied these tactics during our retrospective, and a positive outcome of the discussion was alignment with the development team and from other teams who had insight of how to overcome our lack of QA support that we initially didn't have at the beginning of our project. Another was a list of action items to tackle an epic of work to strengthen our backend code. This is yet another lesson in my journey as a PM. I really like this topic of the week, collaborating with your pod, because I think that this is where the true magic happens when you are PM, and gaining collective alignment and enthusiasm after a project is complete, regardless of the outcome, is super rewarding. Thank you all for listening, and looking forward to presenting again soon.
Thank you, Sam. The retro is such an important part of the process, because it's always, like you mentioned, like you said, regardless of the outcome, it's always good to stop and just take a look back at everything that was learned, lessons learned, and just giving people a chance to even give each other a pat on the back for what they've done. And I see Madam Timer has given us the 2 minutes for the evaluators, and any questions people have, feel free to ask. The floor is open for questions.
I have a question for you, Sam. Do you have any tips on maybe like how to get the team to talk and be engaged during the retro? I know for like some of the longer projects, it feels like people, they remember the big things that were an issue, but then to remember like even the wins and other things, sometimes they just can't get them to talk. So if you have any tips on that, that'd be great.
I do have a tip. So there is a tool that our squad uses, at least, called Parable, and it helps facilitate retros. I'll spell it out here. I will look for the link as well. But the way that it works is it phases the retro through different sections, and it allows for individuals to write down their thoughts first anonymously, then you categorize the themes, and then you vote on what topics you'd want to talk about in ranking order. And I find that this allows for folks to reflect on the bigger issues, but also include those smaller pieces. And then that way, when you're reviewing all of the themes, you cover what's the main topic of discussion, but then you're able to go through all of the other things related to that project. And yes, I think it's a great tool to use, and it helps all individuals contribute who maybe aren't keen on speaking out or being vocal during the meeting. So hopefully that's helpful, but
yeah,
I'm sure there are other tools out there.
Thank you. All right, some people are putting stuff in the chat, so
yeah,
I'm gonna write those all down. Thank you.
Yeah, I think the tool that you mentioned, I think, Sarisha, you're right, it's the Parable. I thought it was Parable because I was just in my head thinking about stories.
I found the link.
Thank you. Okay, we are, time is up for questions. And that was such a fun section today. It's really informative and useful speeches today, and very insightful. Now we will be moving on to the second portion, our table topics round, that will be hosted by Jen Ginsberg. So over to you, Jen.
All right, thank you so much. All right, so it's time for table topics. I mentioned earlier that this section is all about improving our impromptu speaking skills. Some of these questions are things that you might even get asked in an interview. So it's a great way for us to be able to just practice our skills. The way this is going to go down is I'm going to read out a question, I'll pause, and then I'll pick someone to answer. That speaker will have 1 to 2 minutes to respond. And just to make it a little bit fun, we're going to do a poll to see who has the best answers, and we'll announce the winner at the end. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Can I also get the timer pinned as well? All right, while that's happening, a product trio is a term used to describe those 3 roles that are required to create good digital products. So a product pod. It comprises of typically a product manager, a designer, and a tech lead. Traditionally, these roles operate in a sequential manner, starting with product manager defining those requirements, what's minimally viable. And then the designer and the tech leads take those requirements and then they code to it or they create designs to those requirements. What problems have you seen with this traditional model? And for that, I'd like to ask Tiffany if she could answer that question.
I think Tiffany just dropped.
Oh, dang it. Okay. I am gonna ask, let's see, Rosie, would you mind taking that one?
Could you repeat it, please?
Yeah, so traditionally these roles, the roles of a product pod, it includes a product manager, a designer, and a tech lead. And those roles they typically operate in a sequential manner, starting with product manager or a product owner defining those requirements, and then the designer gets them and they create a design around it, and then maybe a tech lead creates a technical solution for it. What problems have you seen with this traditional model of being in a sequential way as part of discovery?
So as a reminder, I'm a project manager, but we do have a similar function where the project managers put together the road mapping. We're doing this in sync with like our product. And so I'm part of that. And something that I do see is that as we're communicating it over to, we don't necessarily have a design based on the projects that we're working on, but we do have engineering and data scientists. And a lot of times there's either like miscommunications or engineering might already have other priorities and then trying to figure out how we're going to make a case. And so I see a lot of things where misalignments, I guess is what we would call it. We really need to like make a case as to why our project or our product launch should get prioritized by other teams. And I think that complexity comes from, even though we're in the same department and we're all supposed to be working on this roadmap, I think we all have different ideas of like what should be prioritized this half. And so I see a lot of that in the beginning. And then once we, have agreed on like what we're going to be launching this half, a lot of the problems then stem from like different priorities that come up, like ad hoc tasks sort of thing. But in terms of like miscommunication at that point, we don't have it too much, only because we meet very frequently on a weekly basis to talk about like where we're at. We're very open to getting like pushback at that point from other departments if we need to deprioritize something. But I think it all comes down to communication, having a really good solid plan on how you're going to communicate priorities, and then after that, statuses. So yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for that answer, Rosie. I love it. All right, now on to our second question. Sometimes there might not be a designer associated with your area of product. As Rosie mentioned, there are times when maybe you're in the space of data analytics and insights where there may not be a true UI designer or UX designer affiliated with your product pod. What other roles could be part of your product pod in those instances? And for that, I'd like to ask Alice, see if she would care to answer what her thoughts are on that.
Hi, Jennifer. Can you just repeat that question for me, please? Yeah.
No problem. Sometimes may not be a designer associated with your area of product, right? So it could be that there's no front end, there's no UI UX designer. That could be in instances where it's things like data analytics, or insights. Are there other roles that could be part of your product pod in that scenario?
Yes, definitely. So what I've done in the past is I've actually brought the back-end users, so the actual data science team, to the forefront, as well as the actual customer who will be using my data product. When you talk to the customer and you actually ask them what they want, what are their values, what are their goals, and that people who are actually designing the product from the back end to the front are at the table, I find it very useful to have everyone at the table, and also be able to form a coalition for us to get to an end product a little faster.
That is a really great answer. I love that. It's really thought-provoking when you're not always in the forefront. Most of these product kind of conversations are around front-end type of application. So I love your insight there when it comes to sort of the back-end kind of activities. So thank you for that, Alice. All right, so number 3 for our third table topics question. Given those close collaborative product pod nature in that trio, is there an example of when you've directly seen the benefits of this close coalition? So I'll repeat that one more time. Given the close collaborative nature of the product trio, that again being the product manager, a designer, a tech lead, is there an example where you've seen directly the benefits of this close coalition? And for that, I'd like to ask Marguerite if she would care to answer for insights.
Thank you, Jennifer. Yeah, I do have example or experiences, direct experiences with seeing this close collaboration work really well. So I've, in a couple of my roles, I've worked really closely with a lead engineer and a designer, so this product designer, so sort of the standard configuration of the pod coalition. And the number one thing, or two things that I see that work well with this relationship is strong and a part of the product development process is speed and quality. Because especially if the all members of the pod are engaged sort of or as early in the process as possible, if as you're conceiving an idea and understanding the benefit, the customer benefits, discussing the customer benefits of it, you can quickly identify if there are any, roadblocks in terms of actually delivering it. Does the team have the skill set or not? Before you jump into building it. And then there's also a deep understanding and more engagement from people because everyone in the team is when they're engaged early on in the process of developing a product or a feature, they're more connected to the goal and are more likely to put in their best work. So everyone is sort of looking out for the quality and sort of potential roadblocks and problems that could occur as the project is being developed.
Thank you for that answer, Marguerite. I really appreciate it. All right, so the second to the last one, so number 4 for the fourth question. Whenever you're working in a collaborative manner, there are always differing opinions on how to proceed and move forward. Everybody's coming with their diverse perspective, especially when these trio of people are definitely have different areas of expertise. What tips can you give in driving towards consensus and being able to move forward? And I'd like to ask Monique if she'd care to answer that one.
All right, thank you, Jennifer. Do you mind asking it one more time?
Yeah, so whenever you're working in a collaborative manner amongst your coalition of your product trio, there are often differing opinions as how to proceed and move forward. And what tips can you give in driving towards consensus on what the best path is in moving forward?
Great, thank you. So I would say when I'm working with my team, like design and tech and product, kind of that small, I guess technically I have more people in my pod. I also have a business analyst that I work with. But when we meet regularly and go through kind of what upcoming
Uh-oh, did anyone else lose Monique?
Yeah, she's frozen.
Yeah, she's frozen.
Let's see. Do you want to, I don't know. She looks like she's not going to get unfrozen anytime soon. Okay, let's move on to another question. And then if she comes back, then we'll let her kind of restart, okay? So let's see. I'm going to move on to another question. Oftentimes, tech leads are torn between leading a group of software engineers on an Agile team and trying to partner with product managers and designers to contribute towards that technical feasibility that is so important when it comes to platform creation or software creation that supports a product. Within that product trio concept, how do you balance the time that are some of the key activities that you're incorporated with your tech lead? All right, so let me rephrase that. So when it comes to leading a group of software engineers on an Agile team, when you're trying to partner with product managers and designers to contribute towards technical feasibility, what does a product manager do to help balance the time between those key activities that a tech lead does going more in the forefront and also helping the existing team actually code and deliver? So for that, I'd like to ask Cynthia if you might care to share your opinion.
I will do my best here. Thank you, Jennifer.
Yeah.
What I've done to try to create a coalition between two different groups, because I don't really work directly with software development, but I have worked with the QA Agile teams that produce a product. And what I've done to divide my time is pay attention to the priorities that I'm being given from senior level management, senior product managers, directors, people that are above me. When they start indicating that they have to move faster with one particular part of the project, I will go with the group. If it happens to be they need a certain part of the product delivered quicker, then I'll work with the people on QA Prod to let them know that we don't have the releases that they want. We're behind. And I'll ask them how I can support that. And on the other hand, when they have the product, but they're not getting it out, they're not getting it tested, they're not getting it to the right groups, then I'll go over to the tech leads and I'll ask them, is there something I can do to help you here? Do you need any resources? Because we're getting indications that this isn't moving ahead in terms of deployment, in terms of implementing it. And I'll try to get some collaboration between both teams by themselves. I don't try to connect them with each other, but I will try to get some team conversations going there to see if there's anything to facilitate the movement forward.
All right. Thank you for that. Yeah, I mean, it's all about getting consensus and driving towards a path forward. So thank you for that answer, Cynthia.
Thank you, Jen.
And I think I just saw, I think Monique came back in. Monique, are you with us?
I think so.
I hear you,
I'm
and
like,
you are unfrozen now.
oh my goodness. I was like, wait, why are you saying that? I can hear you, but I'm
All
back.
right, no problem. You want to give it a shot on your question? I can repeat it
Sure.
and then kick it off again. All right.
Sure. Yes.
So,
give me a refresher. I forgot
yes.
in my scramble
Okay.
to try to get this
No
working.
worries. No worries. We've all been there. We've all done it where you've had like a frozen moment. You're like, I was just talking, trying to say exactly what I needed to say. All right. So whenever you're working in a collaborative manner with your coalition, there's often differing opinions about how to proceed to move forward. And so what tips can you give in driving towards consensus and being able to move forward?
Okay, great. So I meet weekly with my pod, which consists of design, myself as product, tech, and then we also have a business analyst that we work with. And so we're constantly working together. So there's no kind of surprises as far as like, hey, I've been working on this for the last 2 weeks and surprise, here is what's going on. So I think that helps reduce kind of any arguments or challenges that we might have there. But we all have different opinions and backgrounds. So very recently, we were looking at a few different design options, and the way we came to consensus is like, I guess the number one rule is write it down. So just making sure that everyone's opinion is heard. And then we gave everyone a chance to talk through what their ideas were and try to maybe convince why they thought what they were, what they were recommending was the best option. And so there's I guess kind of four. Oh, actually, we have a content designer. So there's 5 of us. And at the end, we took a vote, and whatever was the winner, we then talked to the people who that wasn't their choice, and said, like, do you have major concerns about going this direction? Is there any other like compromise or thing we can think about? And so I think I guess my top things to think about with coming to consensus with the group is, 1, just first, you should already have a good relationship, a long-standing relationship where you're able to communicate and feel comfortable with each other. 2, I think it's really important to be able to make sure that you document your choices, and then kind of get that vote out there. And then I think the third thing is to make sure everyone feels good with the decision. That way you can move forward and not feel like someone's voice wasn't heard. So back to
Thank you. Those are really pragmatic tips. Thank you so much, Monique. So that wraps up our table topics. I just sent all of the names of the folks that kindly and graciously let me put them on the spot. So I believe Amy is going to be putting out a poll with everybody's name, and then we'll go ahead and do a vote. And then later on, the poll just came up. Take a moment to vote, and then we'll announce the winner at the end. All right, thank you so much. Back to you, Madam General Evaluator. Or am I bringing it back to Kashmira?
I can totally take it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was anyway going to hand it off to you. So go ahead, Tanya.
Yeah, that's perfectly fine. All right, so now we're going to jump into the evaluation portion of our meeting. I'd like to welcome Ashley back to evaluate Sharisha's speech.
Awesome. Thank you, Madam General Evaluator. Sharisha, thank you so much for your speech. It is perfectly timed, as I have been considering some certifications myself, and I was so happy to learn with what you had to say in your speech. Overall, you did a beautiful job, and it's so nice to see you grow from several months ago. And it's been some time since I've come back, and I just see a lot of growth, and I definitely heard that throughout your speech and the topic as well. It's something that you're passionate about, that you care about, and it came across in your speech. I thought your cadence was absolutely beautifully done. It didn't feel rushed. It didn't feel like you overthought it and you were just trying to say a whole lot. And however, I do want to challenge you a little bit with thinking about how you closed the end of your speech. And I do wonder if it was seeing that visual signal of, hey, you need to wrap up. And it's like, oh, I need to say everything as quickly as I can. Don't do that. You had a beautiful cadence, and you came back and actually wrapped it up and went back and said, hey, this is what we talked about. Don't forget about it. And one other spot to challenge you is with the level of acronyms that you were giving throughout your speech. And our Toastmaster also pointed that out too by asking that question of, hey, I haven't heard this acronym. Can you say that for me again? And yes, it is something new. It's a process all of us could probably use throughout our product management lives. However, if you know it's something that's still new for everyone, just take that time to reintroduce it again, because there were some acronyms I still got to go back and ask you about myself, but I'm sure I'll come across them too as well. Lastly, just again, overall, great job. Like 10/10 on the cadence. I absolutely loved it. Please stick with it. Try not to get too nervous at the end. If you do see that little signal go up that, hey, your time is dwindling, just wrap it up. Just keep it beautiful. And going back to wrap up again about the things that you covered during your speech. So well done. And thank you so much. Madam General Evaluator, back to you.
Thank you, Ashley. And now I'd like to welcome Ava to evaluate Sam's speech.
Yes, let's see. Okay, so I evaluated Sam's speech called The Retro. I love this speech. I thought you excelled at telling a story. As product managers, we have to be able to tell a story. And I loved the beginning, the introduction of your speech, because I really wanted to learn more. I'm like, okay, well, what happened then? And what happened during this journey? And what happened between the projects? And what happened during the reorg? Like, I loved like the story in the beginning, because that kind of pulled me in and drew me in and wanted me to learn more about your speech. I really like that you use the hand gestures. I'm Italian. I use hand gestures a lot. You looked into the camera, which is nice. You had empathy for the end user. You had empathy for product, since you're in product, and you had empathy for the pod itself. So it was really great to tie that all up in a nice bow. You may want to work on, obviously, this was a hard section for me to fill out because I thought you did a great job. And I really appreciated the insight, but possibly in the future, maybe you might want to list the takeaways as more of a middle of the speech, like after your storytelling, after your introduction, maybe say, okay, these are the 5 different things that you can do, and then maybe list off or kind of go into each one just to make things flow a little bit through the transitions. But I mean, I thought that they worked good at the end too. So that was the only thing that I could even try to nitpick at. To challenge yourself. So one thing I would have loved to maybe heard, maybe putting yourself into a scenario where there was something really difficult going on with your pod. How did you handle it, or how would you handle that person? You spoke about making outcomes visible. Could you speak more about how that's done? I realize you probably could have written a new speech just on outcomes alone, and you're limited to 7 minutes, but I would have loved to kind of pull out a little bit more of the outcomes. And then as far as clarity, vocal variety, eye contact, gestures, comfort level, and interest, I gave you a 5 out of 5 for each one. So well done, Sam.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Ava.
Ava.
All right. I'd like to welcome Amelia for the timers report, please.
Hey everyone, can everyone hear me all right? Thank you so much, and apologies for some of the camera issues that I've had today. I saw the note about the Post-it note, and for some reason it just wasn't working well for me. So thank you for everyone being patient with that. As in terms of the timers report, we had Sarisha with her first speech just slightly above 7 minutes, about 7 minutes and 5 seconds clocking in. Sam's speech also just slightly above 7 minutes, about 7 minutes and 4 seconds clocking in. In terms of table topics, everyone was pretty much within the timed session for that. Didn't notice anyone going too over there. And in terms of evaluations, we had Ashley just a little bit under the 2 minutes and 30 seconds, so about just right at 2 minutes and 4 seconds. And then Ava, your evaluation was right within the constraints of about 2 minutes and 36 seconds there.
Thank you very much. All right, now it would be over to Rosie for the counter report. How did we do today?
Perfect. Thank you, Tanya. We're getting better every single meeting. I can definitely tell the difference between those of us that have been around for a while. But I'll start off with Sarisha. 1 2 ums, 2 1 so, Kashmira, 5 ums, Sam, 3 ahs, Jennifer, 1 like, 2 repeats, Alice, 4 1 repeat, Marguerite, 1 Monique, 1 2 repeats, Cynthia, 2 ahs, 1 Ashley, 2 ahs, 1 1 repeat, and Ava, 2 ums, and then I'm sure I did many as well. Perfect. Thank you. Back to you, Toastmaster. Or
me. It's all good. Thanks, Rosie. All right, last but not least, we have Rishu with the grammarians report, please.
Thank you, General Evaluator. Today was very exciting because I heard coalition being used 8 times, and Surisha used it twice. So kudos to Kashmira, Surisha, Sam, Alice, and Jen. Thank you. Thank you for making me feel part of today's meeting. It's a good job. I also want to emphasize on a few things that I noticed in Sirisha's talk for today. She brought up some really good acronyms. So it made me Google some of these things and learn a little bit more. So SAFE was one of the acronyms: Scaled Agile Framework, ART, Agile Release Train. And of course, there was one key phrase which she used, which was the single golden thread, kind of pulling everybody in the pod together for that single intent. That was well used. Sam brought up 2 things which I wanted to emphasize: how outcomes are interpreted by different roles and different teams. Even if you put it down on paper, people interpret it differently, and especially different teams, depending on their role. So that was a great emphasis there. Gaining collective enthusiasm, irrespective of the outcome, was also another thing that I noticed. So some great speeches today. And yeah, that's my summary. Back to you, Madam General Evaluator.
Thank you very much, Richu. Now I will give my report. So we started the meeting 1 minute late, which is pretty good. Stuff happens. We need to make sure that all members with roles are present before the meeting starts. We missed, I forget who was supposed to be the counter, but thank you, Rosie, for filling in there. I loved, Kashmira, I loved your intro, the pod. I did not know that it stood for product-oriented delivery. So thank you for that. That was great. We followed the agenda. We're running ahead of schedule. We welcomed our guests. It was a good job there. I have missed a few meetings, so I don't know if we had to acknowledge any new members, but if there were any new members, welcome. I did notice that I don't think other than Shirisha, there was no intro for some of the speakers. So there wasn't a little, what you do and what your background is. So I do like that when we include those. So for the next, for next time, we can think about that on the speakers. I don't know if it was planned, but the 2 speeches, they went together. So, there was the SAFE framework that can only work efficiently if we're using our retrospectives effectively. So that's great. I thought that was a great job. I thought the Q&As had great info. The evaluations were very well prepared and positive and included a good combo of constructive suggestions. Table topics, Jennifer, the questions were relevant and well thought out, and everyone you selected didn't have a role except for Rosie, who was very busy today, had to fill in for Tiffany on the first question. So thank you for that. And I have missed a few meetings, so this was the first time that I've experienced the poll, and I think that is a great change. So thank you. It was smooth and easy, and yeah, selecting just the multiple choice was fantastic. The timer background was a little distracting, but I think, Amelia, you already mentioned that, so no problem there. I thought the word of the day was fantastic. It was easy to use, and it was easy to use within the topic of the day. And overall, I thought it was a great meeting. Thank you all. And that concludes my report. And let's welcome back our Toastmaster of the day, Kashmira.
Thank you, Tanya. And how do we get to the vote counter report?
Oh, yeah, you could just This is Jennifer. I can go ahead and announce our winner for the table topic. So first and foremost, I want to say thank you to everybody who let me put you on the spot. You guys all had really fantastic answers. Also, the one thing that I wanted to say too, this was a really close vote. So out of Rosie, Alice, Marguerite, Monique, and Cynthia, we actually had a tie for first place. So our two winners is Alice and Cynthia. So can we give them a round of applause? And thanks, guys. Come back and win some more.
Thank you, Jen.
Yeah.
And that brings our session to an end. And this was such a really lively engagement with everybody. Learned so many new things. And with that, I'd like to invite our president, Rosie, to take the stage and close off the meeting.
Yeah, thank you so much. You did a great job today. I'm going to pass it over to our VPE for any announcements.
Sure. Thank you, Rosie. And thank you, Kashmir. Thank you so much for stepping into the Toastmaster role. You did a great job. I really appreciate it. And so, yeah, my announcements for today are the same. I'll start with the same as every meeting, which is roles. I just put the link to the meeting roles sheet in the Zoom chat. Please just go ahead if you want a role in an upcoming meeting. Just go ahead and put your name in. And thank you so much to folks who responded. I sent out an email specifically about Toastmaster of the Day, and a lot of folks stepped up, and so we should be able, to fill those slots in the upcoming meetings. But we are still looking for a Toastmaster for our next meeting, October 9th. I just realized that it's a holiday weekend, but if anyone is available to be Toastmaster, let me know. And if you have any questions about it, I'm happy to walk you through it. So yeah, thank you, everyone. Please let me just write in if you want to speak or take a role for an upcoming meeting in the sheet, or let me know. And those are my announcements for today. Thank you so much. And I will throw it to Amy, our Sergeant at Arms.
Thanks, Marguerite, and thanks everyone for a great meeting. I really enjoyed it today, and I hope you'll have a great weekend. I'm going to stop the recording and we'll be adjourned.